Atmos as well at the same. Today, I'm going to show you how to make an atmospheric lead sound inside of Massive. Not only that, I'm going to show you the philosophy behind these sounds so you can create them on your own and understand the reasons behind specific moves you would do. Here's the sound I have, and we'll be looking at this sound specifically. I have a plucked version of this same sound. And I also have a expressivity ability here. What I mean is if I hit the note harder, so this is the note soft, you hear there's some filter movement. If I hit it harder, there's more movement in the filter. So it responds dynamically to playing, and that's really important for if you want to perform with this. So, okay, cool. Now, how do I make the sound? What are the main ideas behind this sound? Well, the main idea is you generate 3 tones, at least 3. You might do only 2. That could work out fine, but 3 works out really well from my experience. So I have 3 tones coming out. I selected my waveform sort of arbitrarily. I went through and just did a whole bunch of listening and found 3 that I liked. And then you set them at pitch ratios to each other. So this one's at 7, this one's at 16. Again, set by ear. I was looking for something that sounded cool when I hit a single note, because you can hear there's like basically a chord there of a kind. And then what you do from there is you filter it. And the filtering is really important. So you filter it, and the filter is to remove the harmonics and to create a hotbed of resonance, a couple of harmonics wherever your resonance peak is, and those will stick out a little bit more, and that'll be the main body of the sound, the part that people pay attention to the most. And as your cutoff moves around, they're gonna pay attention to that. That creates that nice little atmospheric, like, whoa source. After that, it's processing. So we need some chorus and some reverb, and away we go. So let's jump back to the beginning steps and look at the core of it, and then we'll jump into embellishing it. So let's turn off everything. There's quite a bit actually, because I'm using the modulating oscillator as well and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I'm going to turn this way down. So we start off with this. So you see, we're already off to like the main body of the sound. Now we need to take this raw material and shape it. Let me turn it up a bit. So there are a couple other things that are on at this point. So let's go ahead and turn those off. So on the voicing, I have the unison on. And I have the glide on. So I'm on monophonic legato, and my oscillator, I don't know, I didn't change the glide setting, but I turned it on. And that's obvious here. So what I'm going to do now is I have this sound, but it's like way too bright and consistent. Like, I don't know how else to say it, but it's way too in your face. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to unison it, and this is going to create some phasing, and I don't have these on yet. So essentially it just got louder. And we're changing the timbre of the sound. Now I'm going to introduce a pitch cutoff. So I'm going to get some pitch variation from the sound. And then I'm going to introduce a variation in the wavetable positions. So now I have a very wide variety of sound causing a lot of phasing. And that's really great because now it's really nice. You could even introduce panning position, and that would be cool too. So, okay, cool. We've got our main body of our sound. Now I want to begin filtering because it's just way too bright. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my serial position up. So it's going to go through filter 1, then filter 2. First, on filter 2, I chose the low pass 4. I want to shave off some of the higher harmonics and bring up the resonance of those so that the resonance is not drowned out in the higher harmonics that are up there already. So I set my cutoff right around there. You see, that's a huge difference, like right off of the before, after. So we've like officially created a space. The dull sense of it, when you take away high harmonics, that will indicate that you are in a larger space, because if someone is whispering in your ear, you get all the high harmonics from that whisper. But if they're whispering from a distance, they're absorbed by the air. And so we use that as just a general cue to indicate space. So this makes it seem a lot more atmospheric, like we're in some sort of larger space when we do this. Now, I have a couple controls here. You might be going, what are these? Well, 3 is an envelope that moves the pitch cutoff. So I settled on this cutoff, but I want it to be this sort of, I don't know, like the sound like this becomes almost more intimate by getting closer to you. And to do that, we need to add in more high harmonics. Create this nice motion, organic movement happening. So what I'm going to do is I went to envelope 3 and I made it into this with a rather long attack and okay length decay. And then I turned on the morphability and I settled on an infinite loop with these settings. I don't know, I can't really be more specific than this. And I just went through and chose an arbitrary curve, one that looked kind of cool, but wasn't too extreme. So you see, this is not very extreme. And what it does is just going to loop through and it'll change according to that, creating an interesting movement. So I linked it up. I didn't want to go too far because my resonance is going to follow this. If my resonance follows this, it could get really bright and unpleasant. So I wanted to be pretty careful about that. So I now would have this. So you see coming up, going down, and now it's in my loop. This is a very subtle loop because the S loop here is at the max value. So despite it looking short, it is a rather lengthy loop here. Then what also we're going to do is I made it velocity sensitive by bringing this up. So if I hit the key harder or give it a higher velocity value, which is what would happen if you hit it harder, then there will be more expressivity in the sound. It will follow these curves more dramatically. There'll be a wider range of values accomplished. Let me hit it hard. So that is pretty cool. So that's what's going on there. That's just a little extra thing that I thought sounded really neat. The next up thing I wanted to do was I want to filter out more pieces of it, have more things moving, and make it a softer sound. There's still an element of brightness in there, so I'm going to see if I can dial that back a little bit. So I turned on my filter 2, and it's in parallel, so it's going to come, this output's going to go in here, and then it is going to run through a double notch filter. So it's going to filter out in 2 notches parts of the spectrum, and then there's going to be some added resonance in those regions. So I've added some rather general resonance. I didn't add a ton of resonance in one section. That would eat up headroom and sound very unpleasant. So I didn't want to do that. So I settled on this and brought my cutoff down just a little bit, so it's mostly affecting the high end. So at this point I have this. I'm going to bring my volume knob up a little bit now. So you see, oh, we got like a nicer sound. So now what we're going to do is I want to look at my mix level here. So I'm mixing filter 1 and filter 2 in serial, but how much of mix 2 is getting the say and how much of mix 1. You see I brought it down quite a ways. I believe it's at mix 1 by default, so only filter 1. This essentially acts as a volume knob because this is only really removing. The resonance is not contributing very much. So this is all the way at filter 1. This is filter 2, so much softer. And so you see, I dialed it in a little bit and got exactly what I wanted. And then you might also notice that there's this 3 here that's linked up to the macro for resonance. And that's for later on when I had a pluck sound. It'd be nice to be able to vary the resonance with just a knob down here. I look at the macros for stuff like that. It's one knob. I could just automate this myself, but I like having this because it has a constricted range. So this is a little more musically useful to me. I might even consider adding an envelope and then maybe side chaining it or doing something like that for more organic movement. But I decided to settle on using the cutoff for that purpose because resonance can get kind of dicey. You really have to dial it back. So cool. Now we want to color our sound a little bit more. It's still very fake. It's not got the sense of a space like we need it to have. So I'm going to add a chorus. So I come over here to my chorus and I settled on mostly chorus. You see it's a little more wet than dry. And these are the settings I settled on. I don't want the depth very big because the pitches are really sensitive, right? And we've already detuned them barely, like almost not even noticeably. But it's mostly a phase difference is what you're going to hear here rather than pitch difference. But the depth, I do not want that very big. The moral of the story, it sounds detuned and not so great. But you see immediately stereo, like, whoa, it sounds really nice. Next up, I'm going to add some more space. I'm going to add a reverb. And suddenly we've got a really nice sound. The color can be important on this one. If you wanted to sound further away, bring it down here. This will basically low pass your reverb. See, it's all like lower harmonics. Over here, it'll sound higher. See how the higher harmonics ring out more? So that's what's going on there. And the size, it's basically just decay time, but they like calling it size. And it's important with a sound like this that it's easy for the reverb to overcome our sound, our direct sound. So I brought down the level quite a ways because I wanted there to be verb, but I didn't want it to be only verb. And this would change with your track too. So you'd come in here and mess with these. Very common to do. Okay, so from there, I was like, what more can I do? And I thought it'd be really neat to have some pad noise. And there's two ways to add noise that are really effective, that are sensitive to the pitch of the instrument. One is completely non-sensitive, and that is adding just straight up noise and then filtering it or whatever. The way I was talking about just now was bit crushers. Bit crushers, for reasons in digital audio that a lot of people misunderstand, bit crushers, all they do is add noise to your signal. That's it. It will still sound like your original signal. A true bit crusher will do that anyways. So if you were to take something into an audio program and use a true bit crusher, it's just going to it'll increase quantization error, and that will translate to more noise in your signal. So I'm using a bit crusher here, and you see it's very light with a very high crush value, and you can hear it doing its job. So it's creating that noise and it's almost like someone's blowing or like, whistling, or not whistling, but you get the idea. It's like, whoa, more of a space. Like, it fills up the sound. And then I also went ahead and added in some white noise. So white noise is very, very subtle. It's very low. But it's there, barely. And it adds a little bit. I felt like it added something. So I was like, okay, cool. But that's one of those moves you could probably leave out and not even notice. So that's what's going on with the main body of the sound. I did do some equalization, and I took away a huge chunk of the high end, making the white noise way more apparent. Making the bit crusher noise way more apparent. My bad. Noise. You get the idea. It comes out more now. And these are the EQ settings. I went ahead and boosted a little bit in the low end, and for the most part kept the high end way down because it's just the resonance can get out of hand the higher you play. As you can see, it can get very, very bright. And without this here, that will be very unpleasant and not very musical. So from here, I wanted to use the modulation oscillator and see what I could get out of these additional options I have here. So what I did was I set it to 7 because I like the number 7. If you've looked at my videos, I generally like 7. 7's just a nice number. And I went ahead and did everything to the same one because I was having weird stuff. Not weird stuff, it was expected stuff, but just stuff that was undesirable from oscillators 1 and 3, and 2 seemed to be the most beneficial towards the sound. And then I went ahead and dialed each one in accordingly. You see 2 has some phase modulation movement. So when so here's before. Now here's after. You see how it's like leveled out that original tone in the middle? Now that might be something you really want or don't want. Like it's really kind of a small change, but it's just a cool way I can control things. And here I have used a very long attack to vary the phase over time. So if you were to hold the note out and play legato, it would bleed over and you'd hear the phase modulation happening. But I'm playing very soft. I'm not hitting my keys very hard, so I'm not taking advantage of the full expressivity at this moment in time. But if I wanted to, I could do that. So I added a couple other things to make it just a little more flexible. Well, you might be wondering also, like, how did you pick these arbitrarily? I just ended up settling on 2 because I was doing this, like, oh, that sounds kind of nice. Like, I like that. So I was like, do I want that? And then this one. So they're just very different moods. So they're not that they sound bad. It's just I was going after a different mood. Maybe you want a different one. These are very easy settings to just click around and see what they sound like. And the 3, the Straunt wave table will typically sound like that when you add in the phase modulation. So you see, you have a huge variety of more subtle changes to fit your track the way you want. Or maybe you want to clone this patch and then add in a variation on it. This would be a cool way. Maybe you're going to make a harmony, but you want your harmony to sound slightly different. And so you could do something like that, just a small change. So I did add one other thing to make it a little more expressive, and that is this pluck knob here. So if we go to 4, you see it's an attack with a very fast decay, and the level, essentially what this knob is doing is this. That's what it's doing. So I can have it be a pluck. And this would be useful to have your volume up. If you're going to morph from the pluck up, that could be a cool thing to do. Something you need to be aware of is you are not able to play chords this way if you want to hit more notes, because it's happening so fast you could actually get away with playing more notes. You'd have to turn off polyphony. I mean, monophonic, whatever. You'd have to turn off monophonic. You'd have to turn on polyphony. But that sacrifices the morphing capability. That would be as smooth. Because if we have these things, I haven't chosen the most harmonically lovable things as far as playing multiple notes go. See, there it's fine, but if we go and we take our thing off, that could be an effect you really want, but it's not one that I was looking for. So I went ahead and left the voicing on monophonic with legato on. Be cool to maybe do something like this. Panning's kind of a cool idea. It's a small thing. So that's the main ideas behind here, and this is just added versatility. I could go ahead and look for more ways to enhance it, but I didn't want to, because that's just like, once you have your sound, don't lose your sound trying to come up with more ways to vary your sound, unless you're specifically making patches for maximum flexibility. Then it's kind of a fun exercise. If you're working in a track versus just doing sound design, 2 totally different worlds. One thing that's kind of a cool setting I found with this is if I take away oscillator 2 and 3, it just sounds so nice. This triangle wave, just in combination with everything else that's going on, specifically the wind, it's just like, if you were to morph from that to the rest of your patch, it sounds really nice too. So you might consider adding in a 4th knob. Let me put in a 4th knob and go like this. And then we can name this like, let's see, 2 and 3. And now we could MIDI link this, MIDI learn. I'll set it to knob 3 on my controller. Cool. So you just have some interesting options. I'm just a big fan of that triangle wave by itself. I might get rid of the bit crusher, but I don't know. Really cool stuff. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Let me see any patches you make with this information. Subscribe and have a blessed day. Going down, now you will see, and just you will be.